Hey everyone. So, in honor of National Eating Disorders Awareness Week, we're talking about breaking the silence. This is huge, and just one of the biggest issues I dealt with in my own recovery and in my whole journey. Silence it goes back to shame, and silence creates more shame than there already was to begin with. There's such a heavy silence around eating disorders, and I wanted to touch specifically on eating disorders at schools or any kind of community, where you can feel very close together to people, but still feel very distant and isolated. I'm gonna get closer. Yeah, my eating disorder really took hold at college, and I was around so many of my peers and so many of my professors and anybody that could be a mentor. I was just around so many people and had so many resources and felt more alone, I think, than I ever had in my life. Just, the behaviors can really start to close in on you. The way of life, the way of thinking and the way of being really doesn't allow you to connect with others in a genuine way, really. So, and it also makes you really want to hide and be alone, and it makes like having all those people around almost a burden. It makes it harder. You have to carve out space to have your own little private kind of nook. It can be so hard. It can also be, in a sense, comforting to have that community around you. I don't know, for me it was a mixture. It felt safe. Like I felt like if anything were to happen to me or something, like I felt like I safer being there than out in the world and independent on my own. It almost felt like I was in a little cocoon, but all the same, having that sense of safety didn't make it any easier, and it didn't like, it just made me more conflicted, because I wanted to reach out, and I wanted people to know, and I wanted to know who else struggled with this, because in recalling it, it was a very dark period, and I just wondered who else was going through it, and who else was also in their like dark little worlds, moving about and doing these behaviors and these things that I honestly felt like the only one. And I felt like this every day, and I asked myself that every day. But I felt that there wasn't much, there weren't many resources for people with eating disorders on my campus. There was more awareness of other kinds of addictions, but not so much eating disorders. So there was a support group, but not for EDs. So a little bit before I left camp, I graduated, there was starting to become a support group, a little bit more of an awareness, which was good. And then I found out after I had left, there was one. But I was a little sad that it hadn't started up when I was there. And I think I tried to get one started, but it didn't work. Maybe it took a while, and maybe other people were able to do more than I was. So there's this huge heaviness there, but what can lighten that? Because there is, we find so many ways to dig ourselves deeper. We find so many options to get worse and worse than we think we could have ever gotten. But we also must realize that we have the capacity to find options to get better than we ever thought we could, to get out of that hole. There are options either way. There are options to get worse. There are ways to get worse, and then there are ways to get better. And there are ways to lighten the load and feel like things feel a little more at peace. And I think that is in the connecting. That is in the realization, you know, you need other people to survive, and this is no exception. I mean, you need people to survive, period. And then you need people to survive even more so when you have an illness. So, you know, and an illness like this that just is made, you know, one of the manifestations of it is silence, makes it harder to get those basic needs met, those basic needs of interacting and connecting. And, you know, those, forget what I was going to say. Oh yeah. It's hard because in eating disorders, it's one of the only illnesses, legitimate illnesses out there that has in it an inherent ambivalence to recover, or to seek help, because there is a stigma, and there is an inherent shame. So when you feel shameful about something, it's really hard by nature to talk about it, but that's going to break it. Facing that shame and facing what you're scared of is going to break it. It's going to break through that barrier, and it's going to free you up quite a bit. I promise, really. It might also bring a lot of more stress, but it's going to bring a sense of feeling like it's okay that you're struggling, and that there are options, and that you're not alone. So any stressors that come with it are worth it. Because they're probably things that you needed to feel in order to move on in recovery. When I graduated from Purchase, from my school, I went back to the campus to talk about my eating disorder. I brought with me some journals, not anything triggering, but I spoke to groups of people in different events that were just great, and really cool to offer me a spot. And I told my story, and I told them that they were not alone. And I asked people in the room, you know, to stand up if they've ever had a thought about being unhappy with their body, or being unhappy with their or feeling unhappy about food. And it, not just them, but if it's either them or somebody that they knew, to stand up. And everybody in the room stood up. So, you know, then I asked questions, like discussion questions, open-ended questions, and people spoke. That was, and people spoke about themselves and how they perceived the situation on the campus. And that was one of the best feelings I've ever had. And in moments like that, I feel that my illness served a purpose, just a small thing, but, you know, with others, I hope that, you know, that mentality really can open up more and more people. And so I just kind of feel like having struggled served a purpose. people would come up to me afterwards and thank me and tell me about their struggles, and and I would suggest resources and campus resources, and I would suggest ways to get something started on the campus. It was just this burning desire I had in me to relay the message to people that they were not alone, and that they have a right to reach out. Like, this is what you have to know, is you have a right to reach out. You don't have to even commit to fully recovering in order to reach out, because a lot of that ambivalence will play out in the decision of whether or not to reach out. And I know it's hard, because I've thought, well, if I tell this person I have an eating disorder, then and they're gonna think that I'm completely committed to recovery, and I don't know right now. And then what am I gonna have to do? Like, hide from them and lie to them? Like, why bother telling them in the first place? But I think it's okay to be honest. It's okay to be honest about your struggle and to let somebody in. That's better than suffering in silence, and it gives you an option to change, even if you weren't considering it very strongly. You have somebody else on your team who can encourage you, who can provide you with resources, who can just spend time with you, who doesn't necessarily have to do something that they don't know how to do. They don't have to be your therapist, but they at least know, and so they know how they might be able to help you in day-to-day stuff, what might or might not help in terms of things to say, or just they might be a good, nice distraction, from all that's going on in your head, and it might make you feel better that they know. Of course, coming out to a therapist, I think is probably, well, it was the best thing for me, and I think that across the board, it probably is the best thing for most people. If you have that resource, that's the best that I think, an eating disorder therapist. And again, with that, you don't have to be completely 100% committed to the idea of recovery. Don't let that, don't let that be the reason you don't see a therapist. You can be on the brink. You can even be not at all wanting it. But seeing that therapist is going to give you a chance that you didn't have before. So all you have to try to do is be a little more honest than you've been with yourself, with others. If you're on a campus at school, it's okay to reach out to people, and it's okay to go to a counselor, and it's okay, I used to write songs about my eating disorder, but like in like code almost, like with metaphors and characters, and perform them for people at my school, at events and things and gigs on campus. I think that almost made me feel more alone. Like, I just wanted to tell somebody, and that made me way too safe. It was good for me, but it was good to keep me going and surviving and writing and, breathing. But I needed more. So please take that step and tell somebody. You deserve to be heard. And you deserve to be attended to, given attention, hugged. I know sometimes we're afraid of affection, but, or don't feel we deserve it. You deserve it. You deserve affection. You deserve to have that person to whom you can be honest and display your feelings, the raw feelings that could come out in place of the eating disorder, or the feelings that the ED is attempting to squash. You deserve that person. You deserve help. You deserve love and care, help, tools, skills, encouragement, support. You deserve it all. So for yourself and for others, work on breaking the silence. Please, if you do, then it'll make it easier for others. And then it will just continue to lessen the shame all around. And that's the goal, really, to just collectively lessen that shame, to not have that stigma anymore, because it doesn't need to be there. You know, we create enough shame for ourselves, and we don't need that shame. We don't. So put yourself out there and write and, you know, communicate and talk, and you'll probably find that people respond to you and then feel a sense of relief that they too can express themselves, whether it be an eating disorder for them or not. It might not be, you know, for everyone. Well, it won't be for everyone, but you'll find that across the board, people will be more responsive to and more open and feel they have permission to be more open when somebody's being open with them. So take care, and this was all really important. So take care.